mean, this is a guy who's steeped in what? Special operations, including treating women like they're inferior, special operations and all manner of other things that special operators are noted for. This is a man who is out of his element, utterly out of his element. And he is going to, I won't say he's going to rue those words, because I don't think these kind of people ever rue anything. He's kind of like Netanyahu in that regard. They just go on to their next mess, their next massacre. Hegseth is out of his element. And the Houthis are not going anywhere. And you can bomb them until the cows come home, and they are not going anywhere. You're going to have them on your back from now until the time, as they have said very explicitly, and as they recently demonstrated, there's a ceasefire and the Israelis quit killing Gazans. That's the only thing that's going to stop them.
It's so amazing, Larry, how the Trump administration decided not to go the easy way, which would be convincing Netanyahu to let this humanitarian aid go to Gaza, but instead of that, choosing a new fight and restarting the fight in the Middle East and with Yemenis. And right now, he mentioned the link between Iran and Houthis. How much do we know about the link between these two? Is Iran, are they just obeying the order from Iran to do whatever Iran wants them to do, or it's something related to the Yemenis, to the way that they see the conflict in Gaza?
Absolutely not, in terms of your first suggestion that they're doing what Iran tells them to do. I made a pretty detailed study of this when I was advancing the legislation, helping to advance the legislation in the House of Representatives that actually passed both houses, the Senate and the House, to get us out of that war, supporting the Saudis and the Emirates at that time. That legislation passed because the Democrats essentially came across and said to the Republicans, this is really not good. It's a violation of the War Powers Act and therefore a violation of the Constitution. So we should pass this. Well, Pelosi, she fought it, and then it got there. Then when she realized that it was probably going to pass, and Trump would veto it, she went ahead and favored it and let it pass, and it passed both houses. And we had an act, a special act based on the War Powers Act that said essentially we'd stop supporting the Saudis and the Emirates and others in that war. And of course it got vetoed. So Pelosi knew it'd get vetoed. So that's the only reason she supported it. Devious Democrats in that sense. But I say all that to say, as we were studying that, as we were looking into that and finding out exactly what the United States was doing with regard to supporting the Saudis, with regard to prosecuting that war ourselves through the Saudis, as we looked at all that, we looked at Iran too. We wanted to see just how truthful the administration was being with regard to what Iran was giving the Houthis and support and such. What we found was the Houthis were giving Iran the extended middle finger about half the time. They were not following Iran's orders. They were doing what they've been doing ever since, as I indicated to you. They formed themselves in 92 and then changed leaders in 94 and got more powerful and more readily capable during that time frame, recruited more soldiers and such. The Houthis are operating for themselves. Now, they're not going to tell Iran, if Iran says we've got some missiles for you or we've got some bullets for you or whatever, they're not going to tell them no if they can get their hands on them. They're going to take those supplies. The same with Russia, the same with China or anyone else. Nima, I wouldn't be surprised if the United States weren't providing them with some weapons, because as I told you, we got to make $50 billion a year. We have to make $50 billion a year to satisfy the military industrial complex. So Iran backing the Houthis is a tale that goes all the way back to that beginning when Mohammed bin Salman started the war, thought he was going to get his feet wet in being Minister of Defense, and he really did get his feet wet in blood, mostly civilian blood. And I could find none, nor could any of my colleagues find any real contact between Iran and the Houthis. It was all the United States saying that so that we could justify what we were doing to support the Saudis and the Emirates in their bloody war against the Houthis. And I'm talking about a bloody war where the Saudis actually went in and cut off the port of Hodeidah and blockaded it so they couldn't get food in. They were trying to starve them. And what they were doing, of course, was starving innocent civilians in Yemen. I mean, this was horrible what we were doing, and we were supporting. The empire was behind that war with the Saudis and the Emiratis on the other side. And it was a vicious war. It's still a vicious war, but the Houthis have more or less taught the other side, hey, we're not going to fold. We're not going to give up. You're going to have to come kill every single one of us, and we're tough. And I'd say they're probably some of the most valiant, courageous fighters in Southwest Asia.
It seems that the Trump administration, Trump himself, is getting closer to MBS, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Is that going to influence the way that they're trying to be just in the middle, not doing anything, considering Yemenis, or they're going to get involved at the end of the day?
I think this is Trump's effort once again to resurrect what he thought was going to be this corridor of economic and financial power all the way from, the Red Sea up through Israel and into Turkey. I don't see any other purpose for it other than that. And I think it's fair to say that we're close to that idea being dead, and Israel has killed it. I don't think Mohammed bin Salman, I don't think the Emir in Qatar, I don't think any of the Arabs are going to want to deal with Israel for a long time to come. And that's saying something, because, the Arabs will deal with anybody if there's money in it. That's the raw truth of it. As Powell used to say to me, that's right after Bandar had left his office, he would talk about the Saudis and what they wanted and how they would get it. It's all money with them. It's all about money. But I think now it's about considering the feelings of their populace, about looking at the future in terms of that populace, and about the situation with the Palestinians, which has really probably been in the corridors of the royals, a hell of a discussion in terms of what Trump has been saying, what Trump has been doing to an extent, and most of all, what Netanyahu's been doing. I think it's fair to say, Nima, that Riyadh and other Arab capitals are probably thinking that they can't live with Israel. And so that's going to foreclose almost any of these fabulous transactions that Trump was envisioning that would include at their heart Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Israel, all the things that Netanyahu was aiming at too, with, for example, the Abraham Accords, which are dead in the water now. I mean, dead, completely dead. No one's going to resurrect them. And it's a question. It's still a question in my mind. Will Israel be a state? Will it be a state? If it is a state, it will be clearly an apartheid state, reviled by the world, reviled by the United Nations, maybe even dismissed as a member of the United Nations. There's heavy talk about that right now in New York. Will Israel continue to exist as a state entity? So there's no prospect in my mind for Trump's grand bargain, grand deal, whatever you want to call it, with Riyadh and other Arab countries bringing Israel into it. They will not tolerate it.
Let's remember what was the situation in Israel before Trump coming to power. We know that their economy was not doing great. Many people were getting out of Israel. And how is that going to change under the Trump administration? What Donald Trump is capable of doing for them, helping them?
That's a good question. I'm understanding right now. Yeah, when I said they violated the ceasefires, I didn't mean just with Gaza or with the Hamas in particular. They violated the ceasefire with Lebanon every single day. I've read Haaretz every day. There's somebody killed in Lebanon, somebody killed on the West Bank, somebody killed in Gaza, 400 some odd yesterday in Gaza, every day. So there's no ceasefire. What I found out about 3 days ago was that those who had returned in the north, most of them have now gone back again. They didn't think that they were safe, and so probably rightfully they left. What is Israel going to do when it wakes up one morning and people have wholesalely decided that the purpose of Israel, having been to give a safe haven to Jews, principally initially those from Europe, and there's no safe haven left. There is no such thing as a safe haven. They got lulled into the last few years. They got lulled into thinking that the discotheques were no longer bombed. The buses were no longer bombed. They had a great, just, incredible economy, which was based on the same thing our economy is based on, essentially air and feathers. But nonetheless, they created billionaires. They had great tech and all this. They were selling weapons to the world. That's the truth too. They were selling weapons to anybody who would put the cash on the barrelhead. And Ukraine was too. I know that because I was working with them at the time. They were essentially a little United States in the Levant. That's what Israel was. Well, they aren't anymore. They aren't. And they are hard pressed. Their economy is in many ways not on steroids anymore. It's on pain pills right now. The port of Eilat is shut down. Thank the Houthis very much. It is questionable whether or not the economy of Israel can be revived. It is questionable whether people are going to feel like they can stay in Israel and not just be safe, which I think is very dubious now, but also prosper. So how do you maintain a state if that's your condition? I don't know how you do it, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it unless something changes really swiftly and the whole fabric of Israel is turned inside out almost, and you have a different country, a different state. One of the things we do at the IPC, the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, every other Sunday, is we listen to people on both sides of the argument.